to be talking about how to apply for your postgrad work permit. Learning objectives. In this workshop, you will learn about the postgrad work permit process, the eligibility requirements to apply for your postgrad work permit, the benefit of applying within 90 days on a valid study permit, the length of the postgrad work permit that you will receive based on your program duration, the documents needed for the application, the timeline for Humber's release of graduation documents, the application process, how to apply, and when to apply. So what is a postgrad work permit? A postgrad work permit is an open work permit that allows you to work anywhere in Canada. While you're working, you can work for a number of employers. You can choose to work for one employer. There's no limitation on how many employers you can work for. I kindly ask that everyone put their screen on mute so that everyone will be able to hear me present. The postgrad work permit is a once-in-a-lifetime work permit, non-extendable. So you cannot extend your work permit once it has expired. The only exception to being able to extend your postgrad work permit is if your passport expired before the duration that you were eligible for. For example, let's say you had applied for a 3-year postgraduate because you're in a 2-year program or a 3-year program, but your passport expires in 1 year or 2 years. You're only going to get a postgrad work permit for the duration of your passport. But when you apply for the new passport in the future, you're able to reapply on paper. You will have to pay your fees again, but you're going to write a letter of explanation with your application and let the officer know you were initially eligible for a 3-year, but because your passport expired early, you only got a shorter period of time. And therefore, now you're applying to extend your postgrad work permit for the duration that you were initially eligible for. That's the only exception for being able to extend your postgrad work permit. Other than that, you can only apply for this once in a lifetime. Now, the duration that you will receive on your work permit varies from 8 months to 3 years, depending on the length of your program. So at Humber College, every 2-semester program is considered 1-year program. So even though the minimum duration on a work permit is 8 months, you will be granted 1 year if you're in a 2-semester program. But if your program is shorter than that, then it's up to the officer whether or not you get 8 months or 1 year. If you're in a 2-year program, you're eligible to receive a work permit for a minimum of 2 to 3 years on your work permit. Can someone please put their video on mute? As there's a lot of noise, it's hard for me to present with that noise. Thank you. Now, the maximum that you can get on your work permit is a 3-year work permit. So even if you're in a 4-year program, you're only going to get a 3-year work permit. But if your program is 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years, the maximum that you can get on your work permit is 3 years. The moment you apply for your postgrad work permit, your status will change from student to worker, which means when you submit your application for postgrad work permit, you can work from the day you apply until you receive it in the mail. In the event that your application is refused, you would have to stop working immediately upon receiving the refusal letter and reapply if you still have time, or seek counsel in order to determine the next steps. Eligibility for postgrad work permit. Am I eligible? How to determine whether or not you're eligible? You must have completed a program. Your program must be 8 months or more. So that's 2 semesters or more. And that doesn't include if you're repeating semesters. So if your program is a 1-year program, but because you failed courses or had to repeat courses or had your program extended for whatever reason, you took longer than 1 year to complete the program, it's still considered a 1-year program. All right? You must maintain full-time status every semester of that program, with the exception of the last semester if you're upgrading courses. So if you have official breaks, that's okay. If you are in your final semester, that's okay. But apart from that, you must be a full-time student for the duration of your program in order to be eligible for the work permit. You must receive written notification of graduation. So that is called a confirmation of graduation letter, which is found in your My Humber account. So later on in the workshop, we will show you how to find your graduation letter and when you can expect to receive it. Now, Without your graduation letter, you cannot apply for the postgrad work permit with just the transcript. You will have a high chance of refusal. So please ensure that you have your graduation letter and your final transcript. How do you know whether or not your transcript is final? If it does not say at the top of your transcript, degree awarded or diploma awarded or certificate awarded, if it doesn't show the credential awarded on the transcript, that is not your final transcript and you need to apply for a new one. So please ensure you have the confirmation of graduation letter and your final transcript. And you should request your final transcript after you receive the confirmation of graduation document. Now, you are eligible to apply 180 days from the graduation date. The graduation date is recorded on your graduation letter. It is not the date of your ceremony. So if your ceremony is June or November, that is not the graduation date. The graduation date is the last day of class or the date recorded on your graduation letter. Calculate 180 days from the date you complete your program to be on the safe side. Apply from 90 days from the graduation date and before your study permit expires. Now, the reason why we suggest that you apply within 90 days of completing your program, for one, the moment that you get your graduation documents, you're not eligible to continue working. So if you don't apply for the postgrad work permit, you'd have to stop working. Your study permit must be valid at the time you apply. So if your study permit is expiring within 2 days of the last day of class, then you need to speak with an international student advisor as you may have to extend your study permit. But you must have a valid study permit at the time you apply. And normally officers will issue a study permit 90 days past the last day of class. Now we understand due to the COVID-19 situation, it's very challenging because a lot of the semesters are being postponed to either summer or fall. And in those cases, you need to extend your study permit. So look out for study permit workshops that will be sent to your email for registration. But for now, apply within 90 days so that you're applying while your study permit is still valid. If you meet both conditions, you're allowed to start working full-time after you submit the application and while you wait for the visa. But if you apply after your study permit has expired, you will not be allowed to work until you're approved. All right, so I'll repeat that. If you apply for your postgrad work permit on an expired study permit, you are applying to restore your status with your application, and therefore you are not legally allowed to work at all in Canada until you receive approval of your restoration. But if you apply before your study permit expires, you can start working immediately upon applying. If you apply after 90 days or on an expired study permit, you will not be allowed to work. So please bear that in mind when you are thinking of applying, or if you're choosing not to extend your study permit, you are risking not being eligible to work for a long period of time. And now that COVID-19 has taken over the world, you will be waiting a long time for those documents to be processed, as processing times have extended due to the pandemic. Now, how long will your postgrad work permit be? If your program is 8 months to 1 year, and as mentioned before, any 2-semester programs at Humber College is considered a 1-year program, then you're eligible for a 1-year work permit. If you're in a 2-year program, you're eligible for up to 3 years of a work permit. And if you're in a 3-year program or 4-year program, you're eligible for a 3-year work permit. 1+1 year program. Now, many students have completed one program, graduated, and started another program and completed that, and they want to know if they're eligible for a 2 to 3 year work permit. If you completed 1-year programs, you may combine both programs as long as, sorry about that. Hold on a moment. Just give me 1 second. Is someone saying something? Okay, hold on. All right, sorry about that. So if you've completed 2 1-year programs, you're eligible for up to 3 years of a work permit. Some officers may give you a 2-year work permit. Other officers will give you 2.5 years, while others will give you a 3-year work permit. What I suggest is that when you're applying in those particular cases, write a letter of explanation and let the officer know that you completed 2 one-year programs, upload both graduation documents, and you tell them that you are requesting for a 3-year post-grad work permit. The visa officers will make the final determination of the length of your program. Many will give you the 3 years, but some will give you only a 2-year work permit if you did 2 one-year programs. It's at the discretion of the officer. Now, what documents are required to apply for your postgrad work permit? 1, the application form is IMM 5710, which we will go through later on in this workshop. You also need a confirmation of your graduation letter, your official transcript for Humber College, a copy of your passport and all stamped pages, make sure it's valid, a copy of all your study permits, work permits, and multiple entry visas, a digital photo of yourself, which you can take with your cell phone. All you do is stand in front of a white wall, take a picture of yourself, look right into the camera, and crop the picture so that it looks like a passport photo. And if you're in a health field, then you will need to do a medical if your medical is expired. If you are not working in the health field, a medical may not be required. The government processing fee is $255. Now, how do you obtain your graduation letter? How do you get these documents? Here are the steps. Please take a screenshot of this page so that you know how to apply and obtain these documents. 1, to get your graduation letter, go log into your MyHumber account at myhumber.ca. Once you've logged in, click Student. Then click Student Records. Then click Confirmation of Enrollment / Graduation, and your graduation document will be available at the bottom. If it's not there, then that means they have not yet issued your graduation documents. Graduation documents are not issued before your grades are posted. And once your grades are posted, it takes between a week to 5 weeks to obtain this document. So check regularly to determine whether or not it's available for you online. And if you have any doubts or questions about your graduation and whether or not you have actually graduated, you can speak with your program coordinator or you can speak with an international student advisor if you have doubts about your status as a student. Your final transcript. You're going to go on the same page, log into myhumber.ca, click Student, then click Student Records, then click Request an Official Humber Transcript. And as mentioned before, if you request this document early, it will not have your credential recorded on it. Therefore, you'll have to apply again. So make sure when you are applying for your transcript, it's after your grades are posted and when your graduation letter is issued. Select as soon as possible if you've already graduated. Your transcript will be mailed to your home and delivered within 4 weeks of requesting it, as COVID-19 has affected the processing times for processing and mailing documents.
Chantal, sorry to jump in at the moment. I just have a couple of questions related to the slide.
Okay.
First is, you mentioned that it's valid for Humber programs that are 2 semesters or 8 months. Currently, I'm enrolled into a program that has 3 semesters.
Okay. So that's a year and a half.
Okay. So my first question to you is, after I'm done with my winter semester, should I just request for the graduation certificate and apply for the postgraduate work permit, or should I wait for the 3rd semester to get over? And my second question to you is there a possibility of just downloading these documents online and skipping the 4-week wait time?
Unfortunately not. So for the first question, if you're in a 1.5 year program, you're eligible for 1 to 1.5 years of your postgrad work permit. You can't apply until you've completely graduated from your program. So that would be after the 3rd semester. And you can't apply before getting the graduation letter. Now, the graduation letter can be downloaded on your MyHumber account when it's issued to you, but the transcript, you have to have the official one, and it's not an online. There's no online official transcript. It has to be in a sealed envelope mailed to you where you open the envelope and then scan it and upload it. Because there's a very short number of staff right now in the records department, they're not able to scan each and every one's official transcript. And therefore, if you want to have any of these documents expedited, you need to have a valid job offer. And right now, the only jobs that would be willing to give those documents are essential jobs, because those are the jobs that you're allowed to work in at the moment. So if you are working in an essential position, whether it be transportation, food department, healthcare, or the other ones that are listed on the immigration website, then just email that document to me or MIDI or another one of the international student advisors, and then we can have your documents expedited after your grades have been posted. Anything before the grades are posted, there's nothing that can be done.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
No problem. And then any other student, just type in your questions on the side and MIDI will answer those questions. How do I apply online? If you do not already have a GCK account, you're going to go to the immigration website and MIDI is going to show you how to create an account online. You're going to click sign in or create an account. You're going to click sign in or create an account to apply online in the sidebar, and MIDI is going to walk you through that right now. So here ends my section of the presentation. I'm going to turn it over to MIDI so that she can go through the eligibility questionnaire. And later on, we will discuss the other steps to apply. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chantel. All right, so I am going to jump into the eligibility questionnaire now to go through the step-by-step process. Watch closely. I'm going to be completing it as though I'm a student myself. All right, so let's get into it. Okay, so I am going to start with, can everyone see my screen? Chantel, if you could let me know.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Perfect. Okay, so we start with canada.ca, which is the official Government of Canada website. Select my language. And canada.ca houses a lot of government services, so you have to go specifically to the Immigration and Citizenship page. Okay, so I'm going to go there and I am going to sign in. Now, I have already created an account for today's purpose, so you can see what you need to do. But for those of you that don't have an account yet, you first need to register. An important thing to remember when you are registering your account is they will ask you to set up a whole bunch of secret questions and secret answers, and every time you log in, they will ask you that question. You type in your secret answer. Keep track of what questions and answers you create, because if you forget the response, you will not be able to sign in and you would be locked out of your account. Okay. All right, so this is the secret question I was referring to. So when you sign in, everyone's account looks exactly like this. It will have your name right here on the top. And if you scroll down, if you've already submitted any applications to the same account, it'll show up here. Now, I haven't used this account to submit any applications, so for me, it says no data. And I don't have any active applications right now, but that's what I'm here to do. I'm going to start an application. So the first step, once you log in, you are going to click here, apply to come to Canada. Okay, and now it's asking for a personal reference code. I don't have one, so I'm going to go to this section. I do not have a personal reference code. So I scroll down and I'm going to click right here. It says visitor visa, study, and or work permit. Since I'm applying for my postgrad work permit, I'm going to click here to start the eligibility questionnaire. Now, keep in mind, I am going to respond to this questionnaire as a student. The responses will differ from student to student, and it would be specific to your situation. Okay, So what would you like to do in Canada? I'm applying for a work permit, so I'll say work. I plan on staying temporarily, but more than 6 months. I will select the code, so I'm going to select a random country here. And if you are applying from within Canada, make sure you select Canada. You are allowed to apply from outside Canada. So if those of you that are thinking of going back to your home country and applying for your postgrad work permit from outside Canada, you are allowed to do that. But make sure for this question, you put in your home country's name. Okay, you do have to respond truthfully to this question. Okay, do you have a family member who's a Canadian citizen or permanent resident? One thing you need to remember is family member refers to your own children or spouse. If you have an aunt, uncle, or even your own brother or sister that's in Canada and is a citizen or permanent resident, unfortunately, they don't come under this definition. So unless your own children or spouse are in the country as a citizen or permanent resident, you would put it no. All right, you will put in a date of birth. Okay. Okay, so here it's asking if I'm a lawful permanent resident of the United States with a valid US citizenship number. So if you have not applied for US green card or citizenship, you most likely don't have this number. So I'm going to say no, because for the most part, that's the majority. All right, current immigration status. Remember, we encourage students to apply on a valid study permit. So make sure your study permit is valid and it is within 90 days of the graduation date on your confirmation of graduation. So best case scenario, we're in status. So I'm putting student. Okay. This next set of questions tries to find out what kind of application you're making. So I am going to say no for this because I'm not applying for an on-campus work permit. I currently do not want to work off campus, so I'll say no. The next question says, have you recently graduated from a participating Canadian post-secondary institution for which your study program was full-time and a minimum of 8 months? So that is the most relevant question here, and we'll say yes. Is work an essential part of your studies? You can put in yes over here if you did have a co-op, or you can even put a no if you're not sure. Whether you put yes or no, quite honestly, it doesn't truly impact this question as long as you're putting yes for this one, which is meant for the postgrad work permit. Okay. So this page is solely for those that have applied for permanent residence in Canada. So here it says, have you been told by IRCC that you are approved in principle for permanent residence? If you are, you do have to answer truthfully. But since most students haven't reached that stage yet, I'm going to say no. Have you submitted a permanent resident application? Again, answer as per your case. All right. A written job offer. This is the most common question that students get confused with. If you have a job offer right when you're about to graduate, that is not the same type of job offer that they're referring to here. Here they're referring to a specific type of job offer where your employer is going to sponsor you for permanent residence or going to sponsor you for a work permit to work with them. However, this is a postgrad work permit that's solely based on your education. So you're going to say no, even if you do have a job waiting for you when you graduate. Okay, official letter from your school that confirms you've completed your program of study, as well as, so this is important, as well as a copy of your final transcript. You will say yes, because if you say no, or if you don't have both these documents, you are not yet ready to apply for your postgrad work permit. Okay, you put in your marital status as applicable and your province of destination. Now, as Chantel mentioned, that the postgrad work permit is an open work permit, which means you can work anywhere in Canada. You can select Ontario if that's where you plan on being. If you think you're going to move to, let's say, British Columbia, you can select that as well. That will not impact the visa officer's decision. Okay, so here it's asking me what type of permit I'm applying for. So we're here for the postgrad work permit. So here I'm going to select continue. All right, you are almost there. Continue again. Okay, so it asks me the same thing again. Do you have an official letter from your school that confirms you've completed your study program, as well as a copy of your final transcript? I will say yes again. Okay, have you had a medical exam performed within the last 12 months? Now, if you say yes to this because you've done a medical exam in the last 12 months, you don't have to do your medical exam again, but you will be asked to upload a copy of that e-medical form you received from your doctor. Okay, I'm going to say no, just so that you can see what the next few questions are. Now, the next question is, have you lived in a designated country or territory for more than 6 months in the last year? Now, a lot of students make a mistake here. Keep in mind that Canada is not a designated country. If you have been in Canada for at least 6 months in the last year, then the answer to this question is no. If you are not sure whether the country that you've been in is a designated country or not, you can always look it up on MyCIC's website. So if you just type in designated country IRCC, it will give you this. Find out if you need a medical exam. Okay, you can go through the list of countries here and it will tell you yes or no depending on the country you select. Okay, now this is an extremely important question for those that are going to become a nurse, anyone who's graduating from the early childhood education program, if you're going to be working in a nursing or old home age home setting, anyone at all that's working in a medical setting or with children, you have to put in yes. Now, if you put in no, the postgrad work permit is going to disallow you from working in these professions. If you put in yes, that means you will have to submit a medical exam, or you'll have to do a medical exam if you've have not done one before. And the reason being is you'll be working with a population that has immune compromised potentially. So you do have to put in yes if you do plan on working in this setting. I am going to put in yes just so you know what it looks like in the document upload page. Okay. So it says a medical exam is needed for foreign nationals who want to stay in Canada for more than 6 months or intend to work in one of these professions. Okay. You must see a physician on Canada's list of panel physicians. So I will say yes, understood. Okay. Do you want to submit an application for a family member? I'm just going to put a no over here. If you are applying with your spouse or your child, you can put yes, and then depending on your situation, you may or may not be able to apply with your partner. Okay, so this here is entirely optional. If you are working with a representative, you can put their name in. If you want someone in your family access to your application in terms of calling IRCC for any questions, that person that you assign over here will have authorization to access to information if you put in their information here. But I'm going to say no over here. Okay. In the past 10 years, have you given your fingerprints and biometrics for an application to come to Canada? If you have, you will put in yes, and if you have taken it in the last 10 years, you do not have to do your biometrics again. If you put in no, you do have to do your biometrics. One thing I want you to keep in mind is Service Canada, as of now, is closed. The physical locations are closed, so you can't go in to do your biometrics, unfortunately. This will not harm your application at all if your application is on hold because you haven't gone in to do your fingerprints that are required. That just means it might take longer longer than what's expected in terms of the processing time, but they will keep your application on hold because they know it's a situation outside your control. And once Service Canada reopens, you will be given additional time to complete your biometrics and submit it for your application. Okay, there are fees associated with this application. Will you be paying your fees or are you exempt? Now, you are exempt if you are a protected person or refugee in Canada. If you do not fall under the refugee or protected person status, then you are going to say, yes, I will be paying my application fees. Okay. Are you able to make a digital copy with a scanner or camera? This seems like a silly question, but what it's trying to ask is, are you trying to apply online or will you be mailing in your application? If you are applying online, just say yes, even if you don't have an immediate access to these tools, such as a scanner or camera. Okay, will you be paying your application fee online? You must use a credit card or a debit card. All right, got that. Okay, so now it gives you a chance to review your answers. Remember that you can change these answers anytime right up to the time you are ready to submit the application. So I'm happy with my answers today. I will hit continue. Okay, so once you complete the questionnaire, it takes you to your official application, which is a page where you will upload all your documents. So these are the documents that Chantal has already mentioned. You will upload each and every one of them by scanning them or taking a picture of them. If you are using your phone to take a picture, just make sure it looks neat and professional. If the document is not legible, you're risking yourself from getting rejected because of incorrect documents. So just make sure that it looks professional and clean. All right, that's pretty much it from my end. Now Chantel's going to show you how to complete this form here, which is IMM 5710.
Thank you, Midi. And there's one question from Kamon Smith that you could answer for me, Midi, while I get into the application.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all for your questions. And I'm going to now go through the application form so that way you know how to answer the questions of that form. All right. So can everyone hear me? Can you hear me, Midi?
Yes, I can hear you and I can see your screen.
Perfect. So here is the application form for your postgrad work permit. It's the same application form for your co-op work permit, IMM 5710, and you'll see here at the bottom where you'll see the code. The most recent version of this application is 06-2019. Is there a newer one, Midi, to this?
I think this is the most recent one.
Okay. And every now and then immigration updates the form and then the date would change here. So for example, if it's changed by tomorrow, then this would say 04-2020 and that would be the version that you would use to apply. So if you apply too early, by the time you submit your application, this form may be expired and that's why it is not wise to complete the form too early. Complete the form when you're ready to apply for your postgrad work permit. Now, the UCI. The UCI is an 8 to 10 digit number that is recorded on your study permit at the top. It's also recorded on your visa. It's recorded on all immigration documents except your passport bio page. For example, we may have a UCI number that is 99657896. There's usually a dash after every 4 numbers, but you are not going to be using any dashes when completing the form, just record the numbers. I want service in which language? They only give you 2 options, English or French, and you choose the option that you speak primarily. For me, it's English, so I'll put English there. I'm applying for one of the following. So in question 3, never click restore my status unless you have lost your status. you are going to click apply for the work permit for the first time with a new employer. That is the correct answer. Family name. Now, many students under family name, they'll put their first and last name, but the family name is only your last name. So in my case, my last name is Bailey. I would put Bailey here. Given name is your first name that you currently have. So for me, that would be Chantel. Now, if you have a middle name, then you'd put it here. So I'm going to give a fake middle name. So let's say my middle name is Amanda. I'll put that there. And if you have 3 middle names, 4 middle names, you would list them all under given name. Now, have you ever used any other names? That is not referring to nicknames that your friends have given you or names that people have called you growing up. It only refers to any name that is recorded on a legal document. So let's say you were married before and then you were divorced and then you went back to using your last name, then you would use the last name that you had before when you were married, if it hasn't changed, if it has changed. So let's say you were married and before your last name was White, then you would put under family name White. If you changed your name, then under given name, you would put the previous name that you had or the name that you were born with. Under sex, you're going to choose whether you're female, male, or if you don't have, you can choose unknown or other gender, depending on your situation. So in my case, it's female, so I'll put female there. Date of birth, you can put the year you were born. This is not accurate for me, but I'm just going to make up something here. So let's say you were born August 1st, 1995, put the date there. If you find that you're clicking on the box and it's not working, you're probably clicking in the wrong part of the box. So always click on the beginning of the box so that way you can fill out the question there. Place of birth would be the city or town that you were born in. So let's say you were born in Mississauga, you'd put it there. Now, if you're from the Caribbean or any other country, sometimes there's more than one city or they have a city in a district. For example, let's say you're from Jamaica, you might have Labyrinth, St. Mary, okay? And then the country, you would put Jamaica or wherever you're from. Citizenship. Let's say you have more than one citizenship. Just choose the one for the passport that you used when you entered Canada. So let's say you entered Canada, for example, with a Jamaican passport. You're going to write citizenship, Jamaica, or whatever country you're from. Now, you're going to put the current country of residence. So each student, their current country of residence is Canada because you're here as a student. But now due to COVID-19, some of you may have actually gone back to your home countries or gone back to another country to stay. Then you would put that country there unless you want your application to be sent elsewhere. But wherever you are, you need to put that country there. So in this case, I'm in Canada. Let's say I'm a student. I would put student. And then for the from date, I would put from the date of the first study permit that I received. So if you extended your study permit 5 times, just put the date of the first study permit. So let's say you got your first study permit in January. You put January there. And then for the 2, you put the expiry date of your current study permit. So if your study permit is expiring, for example, July 31st, then the 2 date would be July 31st, 2020. Now, the next question here, it says previous countries or territories of residence. So during the past 5 years, have you lived in any other country other than the country where you're from or the country where you are at? So right now, I cannot put Canada because I'm already here, and I cannot put Jamaica because that's where I'm from if I was from Jamaica. So I would put no, because I haven't lived anywhere else. But some students, they may have studied in Australia or England or China for 6 months or more. So then they would put yes, and then they would put the country where they were living in if that applied to them. So let's say it's Australia. They were a student in Australia. They could say, since it's the last 5 years only, they could say, all right, well, in 2017, or 2015, November 1 until whenever, okay? Because it's the last 5 years. So here, let's say I put 2018. So from 2015 to 2016, July. I was living in Austria, right? For example. But wherever, and if it's more than one place, if you're a student that has studied in several places for a long period of time, you would list the last two in this application form right here. Now, your current marital status. If you're married, even if you're separated from your spouse, you would put married unless it's a legal separation. So if you have documents to support the fact that you're separated, then you would put legally separated. If you are in a relationship, but you're not married to that person or a common law with that person, then you would put single. All right. Whenever you put married or common law or any relationship status, they're going to give you 3 boxes to fill out, which is the date of your relationship and the full name of the person you're with and whether or not they're Canadian. So you would fill that out accordingly. If you're married more than once, then you would put your current relationship because they give you the opportunity to put previous relationships in the second page. So have you previously been married? If yes, you click yes. If no, you click no. But just make sure that you get the date of birth for the person that you're married to. Now, I've had students tell me, well, I married this person years ago. It was like a 1-day marriage or a 2-week marriage. I don't know their birthday. What am I supposed to put? Well, do an approximation of the person's birthday, and in the letter of explanation, just state, I honestly do not recall the date of birth of my ex-spouse, so the date of birth that's listed on my application is not accurate. If you don't explain that to the officer, then you'll be misrepresenting yourself. So if you really don't know the date of birth of your ex-spouse, and you don't want to go through the hassle of obtaining it because it's hard to find that person, then just write a letter of explanation as to why you put the inaccurate birthday. All right, so for me, I'll just say no. Languages. So your mother tongue is what you'll put here, right? So for me, it's English, but let's say you're speaking another language, you'll put it there, and then are you able to communicate in English? Then you would put English here. If it's French, you would put French. Have you taken an English test? Even if it's expired, like your IELTS test, your CELPIP test that you've taken in the past, you're still going to say yes because there's no need to upload your English test in this application. But if you've never taken an English test, you're going to say no. For passport, you're going to put your passport information. So that'll be the passport number listed at the top and then the country of issue. So I'll just use Jamaica for example. If it's issued in Jamaica, if it's issued in China, wherever it's issued, you're going to put it there. Now, some people will say, I have a passport from Jamaica, but I renewed it in Canada. So what country should I put for the territory or country of issue? You're still going to put Jamaica or the country that is listed on your passport, because although the embassy mailed it to a government organization in Canada, it was still issued from the country that's listed on your passport, and that's the country you'll put there. And you just put the issue and expiry date of that document. All right. All right, so now, what is your national identity document information? Do you have a national identity document? If you have a valid national identity document, that could be a driver's license from your home country, a voting card from your home country, a government card from your home country, any document that is not your passport, but it is considered a government document, ID document in your home country, then you would click yes. But do not put any documents from Canada. So not your Canadian driver's license, not your Canadian health card, none of that. You're only going to put documents that are from your home country or other countries where you have permanent residence in. Then you would say yes. So if you don't have any of those documents, you're going to say no. Do you have a U.S. permanent resident card? This is not referring to visa. It's referring to permanent resident cards. If you do, you're going to say yes. If not, you're going to say no. All right. Now for contact information, this is the very important part because your documents will be mailed to the address that you give immigration. So if you live in a house, let's say you live at 70 Press Brick Drive, then you would put 70 here, and then you would put Press Brick Drive. But if you're living in an apartment that's on 70 Prospect Drive, then you need to put the apartment number. Let's say your apartment is 103. You put 103 there. And then you would put the information here. All right. And then you put your postal code. If you're unsure, don't guess or else you won't get your mail. All right. Now, if your mailing address is separate from your residential address, then you would say yes. Yeah. If it's, you say no, it's not the same as your mailing address, and you'd put a residential address here. But if your mailing address is the same place where you live, then you're going to click yes, and then it will be blocked out. Telephone number, make sure you click Canada if you're in Canada, or other if you're using a number that is outside of Canada. So, cell. They give you options. What type of phone? Is it a house phone, cell phone, or business phone? It's usually cell phone. And then you just write your number down there. That's not my number, so don't record it. You can't call me. All right, so your email, alternate number. Don't put any alternate number if you are not married. There's no point of putting a friend's number because friendships, unfortunately, don't always last forever. So one number is good enough. They're not going to call you. They're only going to email everything to you. So you just need to put one number. You don't have to put your auntie and your uncle's phone number. Email address, then you're going to put your email. Here's my email if you guys want to email me. But you will put your email when you are filling out these forms. All right. Now, date and place of your original entry to Canada. So if you first came to Canada in 2015, then you'll put 2015 and the reason why you came to Canada. So let's say you came to Canada in 2015 as a visitor. All right. Then you're going to put you came to Canada as a visitor in 2015. That was your purpose. But if you came to Canada in 2015 as a student, then you're going to put study there. Now, let's say after you came to Canada, you left, you went on vacation, you came back. Then you would put the date that you came back from your last vacation here. But if you had traveled 10 times since you came to Canada, then you're only going to put the last time you came back. So let's say you went to the States, went shopping, had a good time. 3 days later, came back. Then you'll put the date that you came back, which could be January 3rd, for example. And let's say you came from the plane at the Toronto Pearson International Airport. PIA stands for Pearson International Airport. But if you came through a border, then you would put the border. So let's say it was Niagara border, and you'll put Niagara border. Now your document number is found at the top of your study permit, and it starts with the letter F. So F, and it has 9 digits. So it usually looks something like this. And each study permit has a different document number, whereas the UCI never changes. So make sure you use the right number. It usually starts with F31, and you'll see the rest of the numbers there at the top of your study permit. What type of work permit are you applying for? Well, in this case, you are applying for a postgrad work permit, correct? So therefore, you're going to click postgrad work permit. Name of employer, it doesn't really matter because it's an open work permit. So even if you have a job, you don't have to list your employer there because it is an open work permit. So you can either put not applicable, you can choose to leave it blank and put nothing. You could put to be determined, put pending, whichever one is fine because it doesn't matter, right? But if you choose to fill out this section here, then you need to put a province and a city. But if you leave it blank, you will not have to fill that in. But there's a guide that is available online, and it gives you the exact answers to these questions. You can choose to follow that guide word for word. Address to be determined because you don't know yet, and even if you do know, you don't want any restrictions on your work permit. All right, same thing. Now, what is important is the issue and expiry date. So many of you did a 1 plus 1. So 1 year program, graduated and did another 1 year program. So in that case, the from date will be from the day you apply or the day after, but you cannot do a date before. If you do a date before, like let's say I put before today's date, it'll turn red, right? Because you cannot do a day before. You have to do a day either today or the day after, okay? And then you're gonna add 3 years if you're requesting a 3-year work permit, or 1 year if you're requesting a 1-year work permit, or 1.5 years if you're requesting a 1.5 year work permit, depending on what you're eligible for. So let's say you say, you know what, I've only did a 1.5 year program, but I want to try my luck and request for a 3-year work permit. What will happen is 2 things. 1, either the officer will say, haha, tough luck. No, we're only giving you 1 year or 1.5 year. Or you might be very lucky and an officer will say, you know what, let me just give them 3 years. But the minimum is guaranteed, the maximum is not. All right. So let's say you did a 2-year program, we're requesting 3 years. So we're going to say 2023, April 23rd. All right. And as mentioned before, you're going to add a letter of explanation if you did 2 1-year programs, so that you can let the officer know you did 2 1-year programs and you're requesting a 3-year work permit. Otherwise, they may not even realize you did 2 1-year programs and only give you 1 year. So the letter of explanation, very helpful. Okay. Now, have you been issued a certificate under the Provincial Nominee Program? If you have, you put yes. Most of you have not, so you're going to say no. A Provincial Nominee Program is one of the programs that will lead you to your permanent residence, and it's province specific. So you'd have to go on the provincial website, find out what provincial nominee programs are available and apply. And then if you have been selected or approved, then you'll get a nominee certificate. Now, that may not apply to any of you, and we don't have any workshops regarding it. So if you ask questions about provincial nominee, we will not be answering those questions. So I'm just throwing it out there. All right. But most of you, the answer is no. Education. Have you had any post-secondary education? So any education after high school is what you would record here. If you have several educations that you've completed after high school, like a degree, master's, PhD, whatever the case may be, just put your highest level here, okay? You don't have to send a letter listing all the education you've ever completed for this type of application, but you need to put your highest level here. They already have your Humber College documents. If you've only come to Humber right after high school, then you would put Humber under the education. And if you did 2 programs, you just put the most recently completed program in this box here. Employment. I'm hoping all of you guys are working with your social insurance number legally, because that is what you'll be recording here. Current activity, if you're working right now, you'll put the current activity. So let's say you are a cashier at Walmart, one of the few stores that are still open, you put that there. All right, city, let's say it's Brampton, and country, Canada. And then you would put from the day you started working there. So if you started working in January, you're going to put January, and then until today's dates, which is April. And then you would write Ontario. I'm hoping that I'm not moving too fast and things are very clear for you all. If you had 2 other jobs prior to your job at Walmart, then you'd put the other 2 jobs there. But all I know is you need to have the most recent at the top in the number 1 section. Anything you want to add to this, Mitty, so far?
So far, so good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now for the last page is the background information. First question, within the past 2 years, have you or a family member ever had tuberculosis of the lungs or been in close contact with a person with tuberculosis? If it's a yes, you put yes. If it's a no, you put no. This is not COVID-19. So if any of you have the coronavirus, that is not tuberculosis. So you're going to say no. Okay? Do you have any physical or mental disorder that would require social or health services other than medication during your stay in Canada? If that applies to you, you say yes. And if you say yes, then under question C, you need to explain or list what those disorders are in that box. Have you ever remained in Canada beyond the validity of your status? So that means if you've ever been in Canada past your expiry date of your study permit and you did not apply for an extension before it expired, you would say yes. And then you would explain that in question D. Have you ever been refused a visa or a permit or denied entry or ordered to leave Canada or any other country or territory? Yes or no? So if Canada has accepted you, United Kingdom has accepted you, but the States said no, and you've been refused a United States visa, then you are going to click yes to this question. And you're going to say, I have been refused a US visa on this date. And let's say you were refused twice, 3 times, but eventually you did get your visa, then you can say I was refused 3 times. And then in 2017, I received my US visa. But you need to explain all the questions that you had clicked yes. Then in question D, you will explain why it was a yes. This will not prevent you from getting your work permit, so you must be honest. What will prevent you is if you lie, because they can easily find out all this information with the click of a button. So just be honest when you're answering these questions. Question C, everyone should put yes for question C. All right. Why? Because if you're in Canada, if you've studied in Canada, if you're in this chat, then that means you're probably a student of Humber College, and that means you did apply in the past for a study permit. So question C is a yes, and then your answer will be I applied for study permits in 2015, applied for multiple entry visa, applied for co-op, applied for extension of study permits. Whatever it is, record it, because we don't want to be considered someone who is misrepresenting because we're too lazy to answer the question correctly and read the questions, or we chose to lie because we thought we'd get in trouble. Because you won't. They just want to know the truth. They probably already know. So just be honest when you're answering these questions. Have you ever committed a crime? Same thing. If you did commit a crime, say yes. But the question is, have you ever committed a crime, been arrested for, or been charged with, or convicted of any criminal offense in any country or territory? Even if you've been pardoned, just say yes and just say I was pardoned on this date, or it was 20 years ago, I've already moved past it, or whatever your story is, write it down. All right, and I'm trying to get to the bottom. Did you serve in the military? If yes, you put yes, even if it was just for a week or so. If no, you put no. Are you or have you ever been a member of an association with any political party or other group of, or organization which has engaged in or advocated violence as a means to achieving a political or religious objective, or which has been associated with criminal activity? If yes, you're going to say yes. Otherwise, you're going to say no. Now, if you were in the military, you need to also complete Schedule 1, which is found on the optional documents in the checklist. If you are not in the military, then you don't need to complete Schedule 1 form. All right. And the last page, you're going to click yes, and then you're going to not print and sign, but you're going to virtually type your name, full name. I don't want to see CB. This is not your full name. Okay. So put your full name and today's date, and then you're going to click validate. All right. So validate, and when you can validate, a lot of barcodes will appear, but if you have a lot of mistakes, which is like my form will have many mistakes because this is just for the presentation, everything that's done incorrectly or incomplete will turn red, which will give you the opportunity to correct those mistakes. Feel free after you complete these application forms, if you want someone to give it a little review for you, you can email your application to either myself, Chantal Bailey, Midi Hathi, Delise Newby, or Shizang. We are the International Student Advisors of Humber College, and we're willing to review your application forms and give you some feedback once you've completed it. The last slide will have our emails. Thank you for your time. We're going to move now to questions. Turning the floor over to Midi. Here is our emails. Wait. Hold on.
Thank you, Chantal.
We have one for emails. Okay. I will just put the emails in the chat.
Sure. Okay, so we received a lot of questions. So I've picked out a few of them, and we're going to go through them now. Before we jump into that, I do want to share what happens after you apply for postgrad work permit. So let me just share my screen. All right. So current processing time for the postgrad work permit is 89 days plus. I put in a plus over there because the current time on the website is not accurate given the current scenario. Also, the processing time changes weekly basis. So it's hard to predict what the exact processing time would be. But if you do want to check, that's the link where you can keep an eye on how the processing time changes over time. So what happens after you apply for a postgrad work permit? You can start working full-time as soon as you submit your postgrad work permit application, as long as you are eligible to work while you were a student, you applied on a valid study permit, and you applied within 90 days of the graduation date. Now, if you're wondering what your graduation date is, when you receive your confirmation of graduation, you will have a date of graduation on that. Keep in mind, as Chantal mentioned, the date of graduation is not the same as the issue date. Make sure you're counting 90 days within the graduation date. What happens after you receive your postgrad work permit? You will have to apply to renew your SIN. The number itself will not change, but your SIN number has an expiry to it. So you will have to go to Service Canada to extend your SIN. If by the time you get your postgrad work permit, Service Canada is still closed, you can apply online for your SIN. So if you go to Service Canada's website, also accessible through canada.ca, you can apply online. Apply for a new TRV if necessary. So remember, there are always two immigration documents you have here in Canada. One is your permit. So when you have your work permit, it authorizes you to stay in Canada. It authorizes you to work here in Canada. Your TRV, which is your temporary resident visa, is the sticker on your passport, but depending on the country that you're from, you perhaps applied for what's called an ETA before you arrived here in Canada. So either a TRV or ETA will be needed if you plan on leaving Canada and re-entering. I do recommend students to apply for your TRV as soon as you get your postgrad work permit, because if you do have to travel urgently or if you want to make a last minute plan, if you have a valid work permit but you don't have a valid TRV, then you won't be able to re-enter. So make sure you just keep both documents valid at all times. That's the best way to do it. But if at the very least, make sure your work permit is valid at all times, just like how you need to maintain your study permit status here in Canada. Okay, so let's go to questions. I do have a few questions that I noted as and when you guys were asking good questions over here. So the first question is by Harsh. It says, can you please go again with the early procedure? So I'm assuming you are requesting to repeat the expedited graduation document process. So if you do want to request expedited graduation document, you do have to email us your job offer letter. Job offer letter has to be on the company letterhead. It should have a start date on it, what position you'll be in. It should be dated so we can see that it's a recently issued letter. It should have the name of your manager or your HR manager, as well as contact information of the person who has signed it in case we need to contact it to verify its authenticity. So once you send us a job offer letter, we will be able to consider you for expedited graduation document. Now, please do not email us job offer letters until your academic progress page is 100%. If you are in your final semester, your grades will be posted by April 29th. So sit tight. When you check on April 30th, your grades should be there. Your academic progress page on My Humber should be 100%. So once you see that, you can send over your job offer letter. We'll review it and we'll let you know if it's approved. Your graduation document, which is your confirmation of graduation, will be ready within 3 to 5 business days from the day that I confirm that we're starting your graduation process. And your transcript, as Chantel mentioned, unfortunately, it is not available for pickup due to the current situation. We will mail it to you, and that will take about 3 to 4 weeks. Okay. All right, the next question is by Anastasia. Anastasia says, I am confused about the health insurance. Will I keep more care? For how long? And after more care expires, am I entitled to something or should I pay for private health insurance? So Anastasia, your more care health insurance has two parts. The first part is what's called your international OHIP alternative, travel benefits and accident benefits. So that remains valid until August 2020. Okay. Now, the second part of your health insurance is your extended dental, vision, and prescription medicine. That will be valid until August 2020 if and only if you were a full-time student in fall 2019 as well as a full-time student for winter 2020. So if you're a full-time student in both the semesters, the previous 2 semesters, then you will have complete coverage all the way up to August 2020. If you do find an issue with that, you can always go to wespeakstudent.com and let them know that a certain portion of your health insurance didn't work, and they will help you look into it. If you receive a negative response for them, which you shouldn't, make sure you contact me or Chantel or anyone here at the International Center, and we'll contact MoreCare on your behalf as well if needed. Okay. After that, you could apply for the OHIP, or if you're not eligible for OHIP, you could apply for your own private health insurance. And for those of you that won't be eligible for OHIP, I do recommend you to get your private health insurance. As you know, medical expenses can really add up over here and can get expensive very quick. So make sure you're covered at all times. Okay, next question. It says, according to what you have said, I will receive the final transcript by the end of June, probably first week of July. My student permit expires August 1st. Is it okay if I apply within the 1 to 2 weeks of July, since that is the soonest I would be able to apply? All right, so Vanessa, if you apply in the first 2 weeks of July, that is absolutely fine because it is still within 90 days of your graduation document, and it is while your study permit is still valid. So your study permit expires in August 1st, so it's definitely before your study permit expires, okay? So just make sure those two requirements are met. Your study permit is valid, that means you haven't reached the expiry date, as well as it's 90 days within the graduation date on your confirmation of graduation. If you follow those two, you'll be okay. Chantal, do you want to take the next 2 questions? I can read it out for you and then you can answer them if you'd like.
Sure.
Okay. So this next question also from Vanessa. She says that she has 2 passports from her country. One passport has her student visa, and then she has the new one as well, which she uses now when she's traveling. Does she have to submit a copy of both her new passport and the old passport, which has her visa?
Yes, she needs to submit a copy of both passports. So the first page will be her current passport, and the second page will be the old passport with all the stamped pages.
Thanks, Chantel. Okay, and the next question is by Ho Yu Chan. Ho Yu Chan says, I assume that I will have to put in a letter of explanation to explain both of the degrees that I have completed. What should I put in that letter of explanation?
What you can put in the letter of explanation is subtitle, Education History. Say, dear officer, as per my application form, I did not have enough room to record my full education history. So please note the following. And then you can create a table that has your education history, the dates, to and from, the name of the school, the program, and the country where you completed the education.
Perfect. Thank you. And then a lot of students had a question about what to put in the employment field on the IMM 5710 form if they're not currently employed or if they are self-employed right now.
So if they're not employed, they would click students and in brackets, write recently graduated. If they are self-employed, they would write whatever the self-employment job is. So it could be Uber, whatever the case is, and in brackets, self-employment, part-time, whatever the case may be, and then the country where they're and the city where they're facilitating their self-employment.
Perfect. So one student did have a question whether Uber is considered employment or self-employment. So you just answered that question as well. Uber is considered self-employment. You do have to declare it on the IMM 5710 form. As Chantal mentioned, make sure you say self-employed and then company as Uber. Okay, so we are done here with questions. Is there any question, Chantal, that you had in mind that you wanted to answer?
Well, I see someone just said, my study permit expires May 31st. What should I do then? So if you have all your graduation documents by May 31st, then you can apply as soon as you get the transcript and your grad letter if you have already graduated from your program in April. But if your study permit expires May 31st, your program ends in August, then you need to extend your study permit, and you can email me or MIDI to guide you on how to do that.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to take 2 more questions and then we'll wrap up. One of the question is, what if I already have a TRV after my study permit extension? Should I apply again? If you already have a valid TRV, and when you get your postgrad work permit, that TRV is still valid, you can continue using the same TRV. And the final question I had, I'm seeing this from a lot of students that says, what is my graduation date? This date is different from student to student. It is not fixed. It depends on when your final grade was entered. So we're unable to tell you exactly what that would be, but when you get your confirmation of graduation, it will clearly state what your date of graduation is. All right. So that brings us to an end today. Thank you so much for participating. I know it went much longer than we anticipated, so thanks for hanging in there with us.
Thank you for participating, and we're glad to have you here.
All right. Thank you, everyone.